welcome to another episode of the Get Back Coach, episode 100, presented by Apollo Media. And there is no one better to have with us for our 100th episode than the former CEO himself, Joe Pops, aka Joey Props. Welcome.
Thank you. When you were like, "Hey, do you want to jump on?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely want to jump on." And then when you said it was the 100th episode, I was like, "Oh, whoa! Rolling out the red carpet for me, boys."
I mean, think about it, man. You kind of have a hand in getting Jay and I together, because I just started writing for Branded Sports. Jay, how did you get involved?
Yeah, so the fellows reached out to me for like an interview. I think it was the Orange Bowl at the time.
Oh, the Peach Bowl.
Or no, I think it was the Orange Bowl against North Carolina.
Oh, that's right.
And you guys reached out to me. It was you and Kevin reached out to talk about the game and I guess you needed a Texas A&M perspective on it, and I think I was just happened to be the first Texas A&M name to come up.
I don't even know how that came about. It's not to get too nostalgic with it, but when originally the idea when Branded Sports had launched, RIP, I dropped the blog on there though like 2 weeks ago because I was watching The Village and I was like, this movie just unfairly gets criticized, but that's a story for another day. Originally the plan was when I launched, I was like, I want to create a spot where people can like hone their skills that want to do stuff like this and then go and do bigger and better places. So like you guys are perfect examples of a success story. Eric, who wrote for us in Chicago a little bit. I don't know if your guys' paths crossed in that time. It all seems like a blur, but he now works for Joe Pompliano. And he does all of like the writing and everything helps him with his newsletter and everything like that. But he's like, one of the things I shared with him was my Branded Sports blogs to get a job with him. He's like, so it kind of worked out that way too. And then obviously John Rich.
Yeah, John Rich got picked.
John Rich with Barstool. So it all worked out.
Yeah. No, it did. And we still have that Branded group chat that goes off every once in a while. And it's pretty fun. I talked to Walsh during hockey season. I'll be messaging Walsh again for the Flyers, and Kelsey. Kelsey's another one doing great things.
Yes, yeah.
With the blind hockey stuff, that she was doing in Philly. Just great stuff and a great little niche we had for a little bit.
Some are saying I have an eye for talent. Some are saying that.
And then so like I remember the first Zoom call. I'm in Tampa for the Outback Bowl. I'm on a Zoom call with everybody, and I think Jay's the first one that pops up, and I didn't know who Jay was at that time, and figured out Texas A&M grad, the whole deal. But I was still doing my one-man show college football thing, and Vince is just like, hey, you should talk to Jay. Like, I think this would be a good fit. And Jay, it's almost been probably been at least 80 episodes with me and you, right?
Yeah, I think so. 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about.
Crazy.
Yeah. And I went down to A&M, and then I got Jay up to Penn State for a whiteout.
Yeah. I got to experience Philly and Penn State in a weekend, and it was great.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Almost killed me.
I bet.
But no, it's nice. And I also said, like, if anyone's listening to this for the first time, this is a kind of a nice episode to finally start on, because you get a little bit of a background of how Jay and I got together, and Joe, you help kind of giving us an area, like you said, to kind of hone our skills in. But very thankful for you, Joe.
I'm thankful for everybody that was like, hey, I don't know who this guy is, but he just DM'd me. It was like, hey, do you want to write for my blog? And then people were just like, sure, why not? And it all kind of worked out. So,
yeah. So let's get into some college football. We have a couple games to talk about here. Oregon survives in Camp Randall, 16-13. Wisconsin just could not get anything going in the second half. Here's a stat for you guys. 1 of 12 on third down for the Badgers. Ducks clearly the better team, but Wisconsin all had a shot to steal that one. Ducks had 356 yards compared to the Badgers 226. Jay, did you catch this one? What's your takeaway from this?
Yeah, I didn't catch as many games. This was the first time that I made it up to College Station for a game because New Mexico State was about the only ticket I could afford this year. But no, I mean, kind of watched it back. It just looked like, it was kind of a Wisconsin performance where the defense kept them in the game. I think Oregon looked better, but it just offensively they couldn't get much going. And to be fair, I think they've moved on from their offensive coordinator Phil Longo now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a play call by committee up there in Madison, so we'll see how that works out. My biggest takeaway is like it's. I still think that was such an odd fit for a place like Wisconsin to have a Phil Longo come in there. I mean, Wisconsin, the one thing they produce more than anything is big guys up front. And it just seemed like an odd fit. And I think that's why you're struggling to have anything get going offensively for Wisconsin. We saw that against Oregon. Obviously, Oregon couldn't get much going offensively either. The yardage wasn't bad, but they're just struggling to finish drives off. Credit to Wisconsin for kind of buckling down in the red zones.
Joe, what's your takeaway? Oregon.
No, I don't think that they are.
The best team
I
in the
started in my Big Ten preview that was schedule, and I came on here and I told you started in my Big Ten preview that was schedule, and I came on here and I told you guys, like, I love Ohio State. I still think Ohio State's better than them, but I had said there I see Ohio State losing at Oregon and then beating them in the Big Ten championship, and I still believe that will happen. To me, this was simply, there's always a point in the season where a team that's really good like Oregon can throw out a B minus C plus game and still squeak out a win. I think that's all this was for Oregon. I think it's just a speed bump, nothing else. I think it says more about just them going through the motions than it even says anything about Wisconsin positively. Not to take anything away from Wisconsin, they played really well. But this to me is just one of those games that you're just thankful you survived. This hasn't been able, has almost fallen through multiple times until they finally did. So, it's just one of those games.
The solid verbal pod always says, win your clunkers,
Yeah, exactly.
Georgia handles Tennessee in the second half, 31-17. Guys, Vols jump out to a 10-0 lead. And then it was all Georgia, 31-7 after that. 453 yards of offense for the Dogs to Tennessee's 319. Beck looked a lot better, 25 of 40, 347 yards. Nico Limaleva. Am I getting better at it, Jeff?
That's okay, though. We'll just go Nico I.
Nico I, 20 of 33, 167 yards, did not have his best game. Man, I was very high on Tennessee in the beginning of the year. I thought this was going to be their loss. I thought they would be undefeated up until this point. I did not see them drop in a game before this. But double-digit loss. Tennessee still in the conversation, but Georgia just turns into Georgia, which I think we've been waiting for all year besides that Alabama game. Jay, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, going into this one, I really thought the pass rush of Tennessee was going to be a problem for Georgia, just because Carson Beck has been terrible against teams that can rush the passer. He just hasn't looked good, and even sometimes against teams that can't rush the passer, he's looked bad. But no, I mean, obviously they came out pissed off. Kirby is always dangerous, especially at home. Mm-hmm. You look at this, and Tennessee, I still think has a lot of talent there, a lot left to play for here in the back half of the season. But at the end of the day, Georgia just has more depth, basically everywhere. And I still think Nico I is still trying to figure this college game out a little bit. I really don't think Tennessee's explosive at the wide receiver position either, which really hurts this offense, the ability to push the ball down the field. So I think it's just an example of Carson Beck playing much better and holding up and not turning the ball over. And, by the same token, Tennessee just unable to get anything going vertically to challenge this Georgia defense.
Yeah, and I think too, Nico, I feel like got crowned pretty early in the season that he was kind of like next up. There was a lot of people I saw taking flyers on him to win the Heisman after the first 2 weeks, which rightfully so. Which rightfully so, he looked good. And I think too, when you think of when you think of Tennessee, if they get a good quarterback, they can do things like they did 2 years ago and hang 60 on Alabama when they beat them or something like that. Yeah, whatever it was. That game was electric. But this is just, if I'm a Georgia fan, Georgia has to be the most infuriating watch right now if you're them, because at any moment when they turn it on, that defense up front and Carson Beck, when they're on, they're the best team in the country. I think it's head and shoulders. But then they go and play games where they're just struggling, or Ole Miss is beating the brakes off of them. It's got to be super frustrating, but they're still Georgia. It's a crime though. Their schedule this year. Everybody talks about Florida. They have their schedule is insane, and so much so that at 2 losses they're still in prime position to be right there. And the SEC, I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but the SEC's got a whole lot of scenario going on that especially A&M down there has a chance to really just cause pure chaos. So yeah, I think Georgia's still just as dangerous as coming into the season we all thought.
So we're going to stick to the SEC here. South Carolina holds on to beat Mizzou 34-30. This is really the tale of 2 games, I think. South Carolina jumps off to an early lead, and I thought, looking at the score, just oh, okay, this is South Carolina, 12-point favorite. They're going to, keep this game, have it in hand pretty much the whole time. And Mizzou kind of comes back. And guys, this fourth quarter, if you're listening to this, watch back the fourth quarter of South Carolina Mizzou. It was unbelievable. 31 total points in the fourth quarter alone. Both defenses are just gassed. It's just points, points, points. 3 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes. South Carolina scores. Mizzou then goes back up, and then South Carolina scores again with 15, 16 seconds left. Mizzou showed a lot of fight in this one. This is just, I don't know, this is not the Mizzou team we saw from last season. South Carolina has done a really good job this year, and you have to be happy that if you're a South Carolina fan, Shane Beamer looks a lot better this year, because I thought he was on kind of a decently hot seat, warm to say the least, coming into the year. So if you're a South Carolina fan, you got to be pretty happy. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, no, definitely. Sellers has just been a monster the past couple weeks. I will say that I do think getting Cook back helped quite a bit for Mizzou. Pine was decidedly not it at the quarterback position for the Tigers. But I mean, you look at this game, and like you said, it looked like South Carolina was going to pull away from it. Big credit to Mizzou for fighting back. Still a lot of really good offensive weapons. Nate Noel at running back for Mizzou, Theo Weiss and Luther Burden at receiver. This can still be a very dangerous team. They've just run into a South Carolina team that has really hit their stride in the past few weeks. I mean, after that loss to Alabama, you rattle off 4 straight wins, including one against my Aggies. And, they look really good going into the end of the season, done with SEC play. Right, they do not have another SEC game left. They have Wofford this week, and then they get the big game against Clemson in Clemson. So that'll be a fun way for South Carolina to close out the season. I don't think mathematically there's any way they can make their way into the SEC championship, but this is still a really good year for the South Carolina team.
I want to see the South Carolina fans trying to work all the magic to see how they can get into the playoffs. Because, I mean, if you think about it, a 3-point loss to LSU, a 2-point loss to Bama. Now, Ole Miss boat raced you a little bit, but they did that to Georgia too. So, you have that there. But your 3 losses are good losses. If you go in and beat Clemson as well, I can see South Carolina fans arguing that they should be in the playoffs, but I think they're going to be if we were talking about March Madness terms.
I can't help but imagine if Sellers hadn't got hurt in that game against LSU, how that may have turned out.
Yep. And
Yeah.
the while you were sleeping game, Kansas upsets BYU 17-13 in Provo. Back and forth game. Here are the plays that just absolutely killed BYU. Interception in the red zone right before half, and then also not converting in the red zone. Oh, and by the way, Kansas had a pooch punt that they muffed, and I have no idea how the man muffed it. I don't know what the return guy was thinking.
So it bounced off somebody's helmet. I thought.
Was it? Did they bounce off the helmet?
It bounced off somebody's helmet, and then the guy dove on it because it bounced off a BYU player's helmet, and then the BYU guy saw that and tried to dive on it. That's
because
why.
The only thing I saw, and again, I should have ran it back, but I thought it hit the turf, and the guy thought it. Okay, so that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
So yeah, because he went to dive on it, and then the ball went back further. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? But those are three huge plays in the game, and Kansas ends up winning 17-13. And that's what you need to do to steal games. Okay. Red zone efficiency, forcing turnovers, and just a little bit of luck. But Jayhawks win. BYU first loss of the season. Jay, BYU, I mean, obviously still in the playoff hunt. We're going to talk about that later. Are they still your favorite?
No,
to win the Big 12
they are not. And I think they're going to be in trouble this week too, but we'll get to that. Listen, I had Kansas money line in this one. If you follow our Get Back Coach picks, I was on Kansas money line. Kansas was a very good team this year that just had some really bad breaks and lost some really close games. I mean, you look at it, the tough loss to Illinois, you had a tough loss to UNLV, one score loss to West Virginia, one score loss to Arizona State, one score loss to Kansas State. And then finally, these last 2 weeks, they beat Iowa State, who's in the top half of the conference, and they beat BYU in the top half of the conference. And now you get Colorado. So if you're Kansas, you're fighting to get to bowl eligibility. You have to win out to get there, but it's doable. That pooch punt, obviously. I think the offense is kind of figured out, obviously not against BYU, but BYU is a very good defensive team. But I think their offense has kind of started to figure it out a little bit more here in the back half of the season. It's still not the same, Daniels and company that we saw last year, but I do think they've improved a little bit. I think they're going to be one to watch. But yeah, I mean, if you're BYU, this is a heartbreaker. At the same time, you still have a lot left to play for in the Big 12.
I feel like Kansas and being like polar opposites. Like all those close calls aren't going Kansas's way, and then they're all seem to be going BYU's way. I mean, for the past 3 weeks, Oklahoma State, UCF, Utah, all of them looks like BYU's right on that line of losing a game and somehow pulls it out. So I feel like this was just coming. It sounds like, Jay and I are kind of on the same page, but not to spoil it, but I think they're also going to be in a little bit of trouble this weekend as well. But yeah, this felt like it was just coming. I know you said, still in the playoff hunt. I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think that
you have to win the Big 12 title.
You have to win the championship. There's only going to be one team from there going, and it's going to be whoever wins the championship. So, and I just don't see that happening. This team just feels like it's lost all of its momentum in the last couple of weeks, and it's just been hanging on by a string.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's the wheels are starting to lug nuts are starting to come off the wheels right now. Are they going to be able to pit in time? We got some scores from other games here. Let's just run through a couple of these here. Texas wins a contested matchup in Arkansas 20-10. Jay, really quick, Arkansas a little bit.
And Arkansas was driving late in the game to make this one even closer, and then fumbles there in Texas territory. I mean, we've talked about it. Texas, there's a strong hatred among Arkansas fans for Texas from back in the Southwest Conference days. So this one was always going to be a little bit tricky. That being said, I mean, again, if you're Texas, you go on the road and get a win in the SEC. Can't take those for granted. I think Jaquin Jackson looked really good for Arkansas. I think this one was a little bit extra for him. Obviously, he started at Texas before transferring to Utah and then ending up at Arkansas.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like, if you're Texas, I really worry anytime you play a team with a good pass rush, because I think Quinn Ewers just really struggles anytime he gets pressured.
Yeah. Joe, we're going to talk more about it later, but are you on the Texas hype train, or are you kind of ready to sell them down the river?
No, I still think that they're going to be right there at the end. I think in my preseason, I did the playoff, how I thought it was all going to go. I'm pretty sure that's who I had going to the playoffs and losing at Penn State in the first round. I'm pretty sure I had Texas losing at Penn State in the first round. So I don't know. Anything's going to happen when they get there, but they just seem the most consistent so far. In the
other
year
games, Notre Dame dominates Virginia. Shout out KMS. SMU beats Boston College 38-28. Arizona State, Arizona State, big win against Kansas State, 24-14. Are we going to have a ranked Sun Devils here?
So they're ranked in the AP poll. We'll see what the college football playoff committee decides. But either way, I mean, Arizona State, by virtue of this win, they are in Big 12 playoff discussions or Big 12 championship discussions, and by virtue of that, they are also in playoff discussions. Because again, if they win the Big 12, they would be in the playoff. So consider Arizona State.
Colorado continues to roll. Listen, again, they are figuring it out. Whatever weaknesses they had in the beginning of the year, they are able to mask them. Colorado rolls after beating Utah 49-24. And listen, Sanders had a pick the first play of the game too. Utah had prime real estate, could not keep up.
That broke my heart.
New Mexico upsets
Wazoo.
I
love Wazoo. I don't know why. I just love them so much. Yeah, I know, but Mizzou, and maybe it's because Mizzou is maybe a lot of money.
I love Devin Dampier,
but I just love
He's
that
such
team
a fun
so
player.
much. It bummed me out.
Mm-hmm. RIP Pac-12. Well, actually, we'll get into it later on, but the Pac-12 or the Pac-2, the Pac-2 game is this week. Stanford upsets Louisville 38-35. Did anyone see the end of this game?
Not live.
So is Louisville like jumped off sides on the field goal attempt?
Personal foul.
Oh, there was a penalty.
The end of the play, guy runs out of bounds.
Yeah, the personal foul.
Personal foul puts him in the field goal range. Like, again, I didn't see it unless he said something, but like, you want to talk about altering, something that altered. Oh no, it was, I think a coach jumped and said something to a ref or something like that, and there was a very quick, no warning, just threw it. Very, very bizarre with that one. Clemson beats Pitt 24-20. I hate to see it. Absolutely hate to see it.
Spoiler alert for the listeners. Jake does not, in fact, hate to see it.
This team fights. I will give that. This team really fights hard. Jay, this defensive line looked fun again. Remember that Syracuse game where I was just like, this defensive front looks a lot of fun to watch. And then against SMU, they just looked awful. They looked like a lot of fun against Clemson. Gave Clemson fits.
Yeah.
But again, Clemson was able to sustain drives, and they took advantage of some opportunities, especially earlier in the game. And that ends up being the difference maker. Clemson, listen, Clemson's still in the hunt. That's a big win. That's a big win for them. But I think the biggest game's coming.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a knockout blow for them
with South Carolina.
This game was. I watched a ton of this game just because I thought it was going to be a really good one. And it's one of those games where I'm not a huge Pitt guy either. Like I love Narduzzi only for everything that he's done for me in my Michigan State fandom. But when I was watching this game, it's like, God, I kind of wish both teams would lose. you see Klubnik rip off that game-winning touchdown, and Dabo's doing his whole thing, and I'm just like, oh, God, you're so insufferable, man. But this is Clemson was one I thought they were going to run the ACC, so who knows what's going to end up happening. The ACC is also going to be another interesting one when we get down here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ponies.
It's Clemson. We said this last week. Clemson is turning back into the Clemson of old, where hey, they're a 15 to 20 team.
Yeah.
Every year, might get in the top 10 every once in a while. I think their national title run is over. Liberty comes back and beats UMass. Oh, I was watching this one off the like flipping back a little bit, looking at the score on the apps and everything. Liberty beats UMass in overtime. Tulane, the Green Wave, dominate Navy. And listen, Boise State, again, this is our group of 5 front here. Boise State dominates San Jose State in the second half. But this was a tied game at halftime, and Boise runs away with it. Jay, Tulane and Boise, both teams doing very well right now. Who would you take?
Lose game. If Boise wins out, they're in. I don't think there's any argument.
Yeah, I'm Boise as well. That Oregon State game at the end of the year is going to be huge. That game in program history up until that point.
Well, that and possibly the Mountain West Championship, which, Boise, I think, could get a little bit lucky with that one if Colorado State wins out, because Colorado State is undefeated in conference right now, avoiding Boise and UNLV.
I still think they end up winning.
With UNLV
and I think once you get over that hump, that game it just becomes too important for Boise, I think, to lose. Because I think if they win out, I don't even think Boise – I think there's a chance Boise isn't even the 12th seed. I think that there's a chance, depending on what happens. Yeah, depending on what happens in the pack, or not
they can jump.
Depending on what happens out there in the Big 12. I mean, who knows what it's going to look like, but I think they could jump them possibly.
I mean, they could. They very well could, especially if – I don't think there's no way a 3-loss team gets in, but if a 10-2 team, if God heaven forbid, if Penn State drops another one, or if Tennessee drops another one, or
I just don't love the idea that it's been one, like, whoever they are, they're going to be in the 12, and you just lock them in there. It's like, I don't know, this Boise team, if they win out the rest, they have one loss and the conference title. I don't see how you could just lock them in at 12. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and the one loss being a 1-score game against the number 1 team in the country right now.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with Tulane. If you look at Tulane's losses to Oklahoma 34-19, and I know transitive. I guess I'm not using transitive property, but if you look at their one loss, both of their one losses, okay. Boise, 1-score game to Oregon, who's the number 1 team in the country. Tulane, even though I think they're playing.
Well, the other piece is Tulane has 2 losses, right? You have the Kansas State loss as well.
Oh, they lost to Kansas State too. Yeah, tougher. Because sorry, I was thinking of just the Oklahoma loss, 34-19, which is double digits. So I think there you have to take Boise. However, I'm gonna say something that's bad, guys. I'm gonna say something that's bad, and I don't agree. I think Tulane is better. I do. I think Tulane is better. However, I think in this situation, you have to take Boise.
I am rooting for Army so hard. I can't believe
we're all sleeping on undefeated Army.
So hard. Not only because I don't love Notre Dame and their fans, but I'm rooting so hard for Army. It would be, it would be so amazing. Oh, 100%.
They would go, and they would be in. If they beat Notre Dame, beat Navy, they're in. They jump Boise, right?
Jay? So they would have Notre Dame. They would have UTSA to close out the season.
That'd be a tough
they would probably also have the conference championship before Army Navy against Tulane, theoretically.
And you're all the way in.
would
Now, what happens
well,
if
that's what
If
it's
you
gonna come
beat
down to that.
Tulane, though,
what happens if
and you
I
have
think you get
ranked
2
wins
I
over
definitely think you
Tulane
get 2
and
in.
Notre Dame,
I think you could.
You're in. They
In
jump
this year
Boise.
with
I don't know
the
that they jump
SEC
Boise.
beating up each other as well. I
Oh,
definitely think you get
2?
2 in.
Yeah,
2 group of 5s?
I think you get 2 in.
2 wars? 2 group of 5s?
Just beat Notre Dame.
Wow.
Just
So we'll
beat
see.
Notre
I mean,
Dame,
this
please.
is a big hypothetical predicated on
Big
beating Notre
hypothetical.
Dame anyway, but
And we're already in it. So we're on
we started with the group of
yeah,
5.
we started with the
So
group of
boring
5
and
for our
slow.
who's in the hunt talk here. Oh, by the way, Ashton Genty, 159 yards. You know, a really quiet day for him. Yeah. So hey, let's take a look at the ACC here. Miami, Clemson, SMU are still in
I
this.
think you're looking at probably just one as well.
I don't know. I think only 2 ACC teams are getting in.
I think it may be one.
And Jay, I'm also thinking it might just be one, especially if South Carolina beats Clemson
Yeah.
and SMU goes to the championship and Miami beats them by double digits.
There's a strong possibility
I
that
think
happens.
Happen. Although
SMU does have
Again,
2
yeah,
more conference games
where's
left.
the UVA game at?
You have UVA
Okay.
and Cal.
Those are no picnics.
No. The UVA game is in Charlottesville in Virginia. So they do get Cal at home. Both of those teams are 5-5 right now, which means there's, the bowl eligibility factor to play
and
for
Jay,
there.
They're both frisky teams though, too. Like Cal,
Yeah.
both of the again, maybe not their talent wise, but both teams are going to play some decent defense, especially Cal. So yeah, SMU needs to really hone in. But if they drop one of those games in Miami, it's looking like Miami.
By the way, if Cal wins one more game, Florida State will officially be locked in as last place in the ACC.
Wait, Cal's that low?
But they're 4-1 outside of the ACC.
Cal's 1-5 in the ACC right now.
What? I know. Okay.
But they have Stanford, and they can beat Stanford.
I know, but it's just like
yeah,
I know,
including a win over Auburn. Wild.
Cal is just always this.
Yeah,
I feel like they're just always right there, and they can't get. I know they should have had.
They should have had the win over Miami too.
Man, they're always right.
The second to the last team.
I'm always rooting for.
I love that this is where we are in the who's in the hot talk.
Yeah, the last place team.
Listen, Florida State finishing last in the ACC, objectively hilarious.
Wonderful. The revenge tour. Yeah, this tour for them is equivalent to like when Fleetwood Mac went on tour and like everyone ended up quitting the band. Like that is the equivalent of the tour.
But if also the fans came on stage every night and then just beat the crap out of them, that's what this
screaming at each other. Yeah. Yeah. And listen, also a good metaphor because lots of talent on that stage and it ain't doing anything. Oh, great.
Yeah. It's like never mind.
Big 12. BYU is still, I think, the favorite. Again, we said the lug nuts are starting to fall off the wagon. However, Colorado is playing really good football right now. And guys, Arizona State is now in the mix. Kansas State out. Arizona State is still in this. Iowa State also out, Jay?
Iowa State mathematically, I think, could still make it. So they're not out yet, but they need a lot of help. Arizona State can help themselves this week with a win over BYU. Same thing for BYU. They can help themselves quite a bit.
Someone's getting eliminated this week.
Yeah, so this is an elimination game.
Okay, so this is an elimination game.
I would take anybody in those like top 4 outside of BYU.
Colorado
I
might
think
be the team.
If you go to the championship game against BYU, I'd take Colorado over BYU. I would take Arizona State right now over BYU. and I'd probably take Iowa State over BYU in the conference championship. I think BYU right now is running on fumes. I think even if they get there, I think they're just a loss waiting to happen.
I would love to see a Colorado Arizona
That'd be a
State.
great game.
Colorado and Arizona State, they don't play at the end of the year, correct?
No, they do not.
No. So if they see each other in the Big 12 championship, I would love to see that game because what Arizona State does well is what Colorado has a hard time defending. And I would love to see that matchup. Jay, what do you say?
I think Colorado is a team right now for me.
I agree.
But I think Arizona State has a really good shot to knock off BYU this weekend.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a fun matchup. BYU also tends to be a little bit better at home than they are on the road. This game is in Tempe, so something to keep an eye on. Arizona State has been great at home this year.
And I think those fans are going to be excited again. Like those fans are starting to that used to be a hostile place to play.
Yeah, and you're 8-2
And you're
playing a ranked team at the end of the season.
Yeah, you're going to get it.
I mean, this is the time to show up.
Yep, absolutely. Let's head into Big Ten country here. Ohio State and Oregon are going to be your locks. If Penn State loses this week, which I am, the Minnesota PTSD is already settling in. Penn State can't lose a game. If they lose, I think they still have a shot, but they might be on the outside looking in. Here's the thing with Indiana. I think Indiana has to keep this decently close. I think if they get beat by more than 2 touchdowns, I think Indiana. No,
I think also
I think they can lose by 21.
I think they can lose.
It'll matter the look of the game too.
I think 17.
Because if they score they
just can't get.
Rourke scores like a touchdown
raised
in the fourth quarter that means absolutely nothing, and puts it within 20. I think that also is not good enough. Big time. Statistically, it'll definitely help.
It also helps Indiana's case.
If they win?
Yes. Georgia beating Tennessee by 2 touchdowns. Ole Miss beating Georgia by 2 touchdowns. Because then you have a committee that says, "Oh, well, Tennessee deserves to be in. They lost to, it's Georgia." Well, and then you'll say, "Well, wait a second. Indiana held their own against Ohio State by the same measure, and they have 1 less loss." I think it makes it harder for them to keep Indiana out if it's a 21-point game.
And I also think too the committee.
Ole Miss,
I think a part of what the committee is going to look to do is that
in this hunt,
whether they mean to or not,
multiple touchdowns,
there is an excitement factor that they want to put out there, and Indiana can score. No matter what you say, they can put points up. So I think that bodes well for them, that even if they're right on that cusp, I think they'll look at them and say, well, these guys could put up 40 against almost anybody, most likely, depending. We'll see what happens to Ohio State. They can put up 40 against almost anybody. I think that is a really good thing to have on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. And now here comes where the chaos is. Like everyone predicted,
they're in prime
the SEC,
position.
The Chaos Conference here. Georgia, I think, has played their way back into this. They're in.
Yeah,
they're in. Tennessee still in.
Can I jump in real quick? This week before the games,
Tennessee's in good shape.
I put in Alabama plus 850 to win it all. I love where I think that they're going to finish the season and be right there in that 7-8 seed range right there. And I think that they're going to get in prime position to make a little run.
Okay. I think Ole Miss I do like Alabama.
Oh,
I think
for
Alabama
sure.
will be in, but I like Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is the most dangerous team in America when they're playing well.
The
Yes,
discipline is the issue
discipline is
there.
the issue. But no, I think that Ole Miss can 100% make a deep run here. LSU out, obviously, right? Yes, LSU's out.
LSU's
can
done.
Throw them out.
Mizzou's also
they're-
gone. They're kind of hanging on with two
Here it is.
SEC losses. Just to, I mean, I don't know what all the tiebreaker scenarios are. Obviously, you have Texas and Texas A&M with one SEC loss. Then you have Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, all with two losses in the conference. I don't want A&M to look past Auburn.
Yes.
Because I do think this is going to be a challenging game on the road, but it does feel like it's going to come down to that final game of the season in College Station when Texas and A&M play, which is wild.
Playoff game.
Wild
A&M
to me.
versus Texas is a playoff game. The loser is done.
The other piece of it is, even if A&M loses to Auburn,
it can.
I think mathematically, with a win over Texas, they could still get into the SEC championship game. I don't know exactly how the tiebreakers work out, but
I love this stuff. There's so much that can still happen. Texas A&M holds the keys to chaos right now, and if they want to unlock and open the door, they got a chance to, and it's just going to create just absolute madness.
Yeah. No, I have it right in the notes. Texas A&M Texas is the playoff game. If I am a little worried for A&M this weekend,
the one silver lining that I have for this game is that Auburn also has Alabama the week after, so maybe they could also be looking at. Only silver lining I have here.
But I think we're going to be looking at Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, and then maybe Texas A&M or Texas. And then I think ACC is only going to get one.
I think they could as well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what would be interesting.
The other piece of this is I think Tennessee, even if Texas loses to A&M, they could still have a chance of getting in with
I think
two
it's
losses.
At like noon. Man, if that game was on the lights, I'm telling you right now, live in that game, that would be an automatic play for me. I don't know what they would be. They'd probably be like 12 and a half, 13-point dogs, but that would be an immediately spread and money line play for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, Diego Pavia, Agent of Chaos, capable of anything.
And then we have Notre Dame.
Fair.
Which is
who is in if they win
out. And honestly, there's your second ACC team. I know they're not, but that's
it'll be interesting what happens with them.
I
because
think the committee is
if they win out and they get that 5th seed,
Notre Dame is your honorary.
It's such
ACC
a gift
team.
to them. But I really feel like I hate them so much. And their schedule being how do we not punish them for losing at home to Northern Illinois? How is that just not at all in anybody's craw? Their defense is amazing, yada 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 yada. But like, how are we still ranking them ahead of some of these other? It's such a bad loss.
It's a bad loss.
Listen, maybe I don't know. Their defense is really impressive. It's like really impressive. But their schedule is not great.
I mean,
you look at Boise,
can catch them too.
Blind Team A, Team B, and you looked at their schedules and put in the caveats of who they lost to. You'd be like, well, Boise, that's Team B. That's the team that's got to be ranked 6th, not 15th compared to the other team. Makes us. I'm off my soapbox.
Jay, tell us what's going on in the FCS.
Yeah, it's the time for the FCS Minute. First of all, Montana State with the win on the road over UC Davis to win the Big Sky Conference. Montana State's 11-0, including a win over FBS New Mexico earlier this year. They're in great shape heading into the Brawl of the Wild. We also have this week, massive game between number 1 North Dakota State. They're headed to number 4 South Dakota. This should be a absolute banger in the Missouri Valley Conference. There's some other great we always talk about rivalry week in FBS. This is rivalry week for FCS. You have some big games like the game, Harvard and Yale. You have the rivalry, Lehigh and Lafayette.
Love that.
You have, again, Brawl of the Wild, which I mentioned. So really fun week in FCS. There's going to be plenty of games to watch. Tune into all of them. Watch more FCS football. That's our message here on the Get Back Coach always.
And speaking of our neck of the woods, real quick, the Division II
the
minute, which
rivalry.
you're all begging to hear
The
about.
most played game in all
University
college
of Pennsylvania
football.
finishes off their
159 meetings, I
first
believe.
ever undefeated
That's
season
Joe and
while
his neck
winning
of the woods,
back-to-back PSAC championships. They're number 1 in the Super Region, number 2 in the nation right now. They will play the winner of Slippery Rock and New Haven on November 30th. I will be in attendance. Who is number 1? Is it Ferris State or is it? No, not Pittsburgh. Harding lost, which when you look at
Joe,
their,
can I ask you who's number 1 in the nation right now?
But that was big. I
was
think
going
it's
to say
Ferris
State,
is
maybe
still number
Pittsburgh
1.
State.
Because Harding lost earlier this year.
Oh no, it's
to
Charleston,
Washington
West Virginia.
Baptist.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they didn't even get a 1.
Ferris State's usually always. Really? It's Charleston?
Oh, they're the 2 seed in Kutztown's region. So
no way.
Looking like the
I know Charleston.
the region finals is going to be a good one.
That's Southern. That's more Southern West Virginia.
Wild.
Yeah, I won't know because they're gonna have to come to the boys in Berks.
No, that's that's a cool little stadium they got there too, right in the middle of the city of Charleston, West Virginia.
Dude, Super Region 4 is kind of wild with all the teams in the RMAC kind of beating each other out. Colorado State University Pueblo.
Yeah, that's a big one.
They had a good year this year. Shout out to Coach Fasky.
Aren't they usually a power?
Colorado Mines has been really big out there lately. I think Pueblo hasn't been as good, but
Shorty's on the waterfront. Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful ball.
Sorry, not Jay. Joe, where is the?
There you go. Where's
the Kutztown spot? Is it Shorty's? No. There it is. See, I remember something.
I love that we got some D2 talk in here today.
Great. It's great. All right, so a couple games here. I'm just gonna run through these, ask you guys what you're interested in. Tonight, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, Maction returns, and you better be watching Maction because what else are you gonna watch on a Tuesday night? But we have the battle for the wagon wheel, Akron versus Kent State. Oh, it's a sicko's dream, everybody. For the wagon wheel, Akron and Kent State, both not good. Probably two of the worst.
This is 2-8 Akron versus 0-10 Kent State.
Yes. Oh, it's going to be great for the wagon wheel of all things. And then also a big MAC championships. If the sicko side isn't your thing, we have an actual good MAC game with Northern Illinois versus Miami of Ohio. Big time MAC championship implications there. On Wednesday, another one that has MAC implications, Ohio versus Toledo. I think is going to be a must watch on Wednesday. Guys, the Ohio Bobcats, the job Tim Albin has done, they lose guys every year in the portal, every single year. And the last 4 or 5 years, they are around that MAC championship. Great job there by Tim Albin with the Bobcats. Toledo, also a main player in the MAC. Thursday night, NC State travels to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, 8.5-point favorite, 53.5 over under. Who are in these midweek games? who are you most excited to watch?
Man,
Joe?
I'm pumped about that Ohio Toledo game. I'm also pumped for Eastern Michigan and Buffalo playing. Eastern Michigan scratching and
Yeah.
clawing to try to get to bowl eligibility. The Eagles of Ypsilanti, Michigan. I love saying that. But it's MAC is just fun, man. I love watching these games.
Mhm.
It's cool to see them highlight. And I know like these games aren't great for attendance midweek, but just being able to watch these
Begging.
games during the week makes me so happy at home.
They're the games when it's Wednesday in the summer. We're begging.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like Akron Kent State is like Scrapple. Joe, you might know what Scrapple is.
Kinda.
Okay. Jay, are you familiar with Scrapple?
I am. It's kind of like Spam, similar to
fry it.
Spam.
It's like
So good.
everything they don't use in the meat,
Yeah.
they throw it in a blender and they put it. It's like a big gray blob. That's yeah, they fry it. That's what Akron and Kent State would be if we got that in July. And it's just like I would just be just shoving it into my mouth. It's just like
The
that's
the
what that
only
would be.
thing I'm sad about with this midweek action is
Oh,
if the Eastern Michigan Buffalo game was one day later, we'd be having a 72% chance of snow instead of rain.
I love Northern Illinois,
And
Miami,
that's what I
Ohio
really
games.
want is a
Those are
midweek
two teams
snow
that
action game.
that line on that's really tight too because I think they
Joe, you
know it's
looking
going to
to
be a
forward
great
anything
game.
during the week?
I like Northern Illinois to win that game as well, but I've been steadily betting the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday games for the past like 2 months. There's been I think somebody tweeted out 55 straight days of football. So I've just been giving out a play a day, 55 days, 55 plays. We've been hot on college football right now. These midweek games are so much fun to watch. But to your point, these are the games we would beg for in summertime. So I try to make sure that I take full advantage of watching them. So I'm checking in on all of them.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Joe, we're going to stay with you because Friday, the Purdue Boilermakers travel to East Lansing. Your Spartans. Michigan State is a 14.5-point favorite. Joe, what do you, not just with the game, but
Yeah.
how do you like Jonathan Smith and the direction your Spartans are going? What is your take around the program right now? Because
Hell
we
yes.
do have, I will say, we do have
Shout out AP.
at least one
My
Michigan
boy,
State
from
fan
JP
that
to
listens
AP.
religiously. Shout out AP. There we go. So,
I think this year has gone pretty much exactly
what is your take
how
on,
I think we kind of all
the
expected
Spartans
it to
this year,
go.
Sparty?
5-6 wins. The fact that Boston College game got away from them, that one hurt really bad because they would be playing and getting bowl eligibility this weekend, which would be a huge win for Jonathan Smith to come in and do that with this team. I still think that Rutgers game is going to be so hard for them to win to get there, but it's going to be an amazing game. He's done an amazing job. I will say this is the first time, though, that this is the first time I've ever felt fear about the fact that they have young talent. Because, I mean, Aiden Childs is a baby. He's 18, 19 years old. He's so young. Nick Marsh, 6'3", 210. He is an absolute true freshman problem out there. He is a problem. Well, the reason I'm scared is because somebody like Penn State is probably going to get him, which terrifies me. But the young talent they have right now is really impressive. The defense is top 50 in both against the pass, against the run. So they've played up to their standards. He's bringing back the Spartan mentality of we're going to play really tough defense and we're going to slug it out with you on offense and see what we can do. So how happy can you be for a team that's barely going to, if they make a bowl game? About as happy as you can be from where the Spartans have been over the course of the last couple of years, trying to recover from losing Mark D'Antonio and the error that was. So happy with where we're going. I'm happy that we're going to hopefully beat the snot out and then just not a good football team and an awful matchup for them. Just the way that Sparty plays the ball and the way that they play the ball. They're
not good.
I don't
not
see how Purdue scores more than 14 against this team. I think it's going to be a really long day for the Boilermakers. But we're moving in the right direction. Onward and upward. Oh, need him back so bad.
Good. Awesome. That's good to hear. We need Sparty back. We need Sparty back. Let's take a look at Saturday. And we're going to start off at noon kick. Big noon kick. Ohio State is a 12.5-point favorite. 62 is the over-under. I'm going to start this off. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I feel so dirty. I feel so dirty. I like Ohio State minus 12.5. Jay. Oh,
Indiana money line.
I love it.
I'm going for it. Plus 380.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all in. I'm all in on Cignetti. He said he was going to beat Michigan. He said he was going to beat Ohio State when he first got to Indiana. He's one half of it down. Listen, this feels like a game where Indiana has a chance. The crowd maybe not quite as into it as they should be for a top 5 matchup.
Yeah.
They're thinking, oh, it's still Indiana. This ain't your mom and daddy's Indiana. This is the smoking Cignettis,
like
and they're coming for blood.
That was fantastic.
Indiana money line
somebody
is
send
the
that
pick for
to
me.
the social media team. Get that on the billboard.
I think so. I think it did.
Yeah, we need that. We need that. Let's see, 5, 6. Next up, Ole Miss at Florida. Florida is a 10.5-point dog at home. 55.5 over under. Listen, big win last week for Florida with the LSU game. I think they have a big hangover because they've been dying for a win. I think Ole Miss handles them. I would wait this game out to see if we can get the hook down, though. But I would take Ole Miss I would take Ole Miss minus 10 if we didn't have the hook. Jay.
Oh man, I don't trust Ole Miss. I think they're a far better team when they play disciplined, but they just have such a tendency to do dumb things. I think I'm going to take the under here because I do think that Florida's going to struggle to move the ball. And I just think that, in the swamp, going to be some difficulties for the Ole Miss offense.
It's not a bad pick. For me, so I'm taking the under Ole Miss minus 10. Florida is going to have to pass the ball to compete in this game. Ole Miss's rush defense is absolutely elite. So you're basically saying Flagway versus Dart. Who do you got? I'm going to take Dart all day and twice on Sunday. So I think that they're absolutely going to crush this team.
Dart. Yep. Penn State at Minnesota. Like I said, the Gopher PTSD is already settling in. I have visions of me as a small child, 1999, watching undefeated Penn State lose in just horrific fashion to Minnesota on a miraculous catch. 2019 on a phantom offensive pass interference that put him to 3rd and 25. I think Minnesota keeps this game close. They're coming off of a bye. It's in Minnesota. I like Minnesota plus 12. Penn State wins. Minnesota keeps
I pretty
close.
much agree with everything you said. The other piece of it is Minnesota has had a bye week to stew over their loss to Rutgers, which they feel like shouldn't have happened. Usually when a team loses, goes into the bye week, they come out with a little bit of extra piss and vinegar. I think that's going to be the case here for Minnesota. I think they keep it close. I do think Penn State wins, but Minnesota plus 12.
Listen, as a huge Penn State fan as I am, and a giant James Franklin supporter, I do have to take Minnesota plus the 13. This really honestly comes down to the fact that both these teams have really good rush defenses. So I expect this to be a slower game. I wanted to take the under, but this is a game too all year where I've bet a Penn State under, and then Penn State ends up just being able to really just put up a bunch of numbers late. So I don't want to get caught in that trap again. I think both defenses stop the run a ton, but I think Minnesota just keeps it close enough, and I think it's within a 10-point game.
By the way, it's criminal that we don't get the land grant trophy this year.
It is. But hey, we get the governor's victory bell for this one. Governor's victory bell. Joe, yeah, it's going to be a close one. I think everyone's pretty much in
I do
agreement
think
there.
though, when you get to Saturday and
Again,
you
go
look
for
up
PTSD, man.
the
It's
public, I think
real.
the public's gonna be all over Penn State.
I'm already
I think the
nervous going
public's
into
gonna
it,
look
honestly.
at 12, 12 and a half, and they're gonna
Yeah,
jump all over them.
really. Well, here's might be a reason for that. So I think I was talking to Lion Yinzer, who was saying that every time Penn State's come into this, West Virginia, they were a 10-point favorite, 10.5-point favorite. Wisconsin, 10.5-point favorite. USC they did cover. But it seems like every time Penn State's in this position, or at least 2 out of 3 times, it's been, oh, Penn State might lose this week, and a bunch of
Yeah.
media is picking them to lose as a favorite. They end up winning by 20 points. Wisconsin, they blew them out in the second half. West Virginia blew them out in the second half. This game could very well be tied at halftime, and then Penn State comes out in the second half and beats them by 2 scores. I could definitely see that as well. I hope that's what happens. But
Yeah.
Minnesota, more dangerous than what people give them credit for. Plus, PJ Fleck usually does well in these spots. USC at UCLA. UCLA 4.5-point dog home. Over under set at 51.5. Guys, UCLA is playing some pretty good football right now. They have really started to gel a lot better. They had a really, really tough schedule to start. I don't know. I'm staying away from this game, but I think I might smell UCLA upset here.
UCLA money line.
Jay,
I'm going with it. I
There it
don't
is.
trust this USC team. It feels like they're coming apart at the seams. Whereas UCLA kind of feels like, even though with the loss to Washington, they've rallied around each other. It's a tale of two completely different locker room cultures in my mind. And I think that's going to carry the day for UCLA. This is always a fun uniform matchup, though. So always excited to see that part of this game.
Yes. Great uniform game. Joe.
Sorry about that, boys. I muted myself to cough.
I cannot hear
Jay,
Joe.
can you hear Joe?
That makes sense. No,
We can't hear him.
I'm going USC, and reason is very simple. UCLA burnt me last week against Washington. I thought that they were definitely going to cover. I liked them to actually win, and then they just came out and laid a stinker and an egg. So I'm going against them. This is a revenge pick for me. So I'm going to take USC to cover.
Okay. SMU at Virginia. Virginia 9.5-point dogs at home. 58 is set for the over/under. I am staying away. I wanted to originally take Virginia in this game. 9.5 looks like a lot, and it's scaring me. I'm scared away. I'm not taking anything. I think I like Virginia here, but I don't know. I'm not sure how
This
to read
feels like a
Jay.
classic slip up spot for SMU, where they'll. I just think they're going to struggle on the road. I do think they ultimately get the win against Virginia, but I think it's going to be a close game. I like Virginia plus 9.5.
Plus, that's what I'm leaning towards. It looks
I'm going against you guys
it looks
again.
too easy.
For
And
me,
when things
SMU
are
is more
too
to play
easy,
with
they
or play
usually
for
are.
right now
Joe.
than Virginia does right now. SMU has it all in front of them, and I know, but it's not the same as playoff eligibility. And the big key for me, the difference here is that Virginia, while yes, they've been playing tough, their bottom, I think they're ranked 110 in third down conversion on offense, where SMU is top 30 in third down conversion and defense. That's what wins you and loses you the game. And I think that's a 10-point swing to be that far off on the biggest down of the play. Or the biggest play of the downs.
Yeah. Okay. I can't argue with the logic. I can't. Wisconsin at Nebraska. Nebraska is a 2.5-point favorite at home. 42.5 is set for the over/under. Jay, I'm going to go to you first. Does Nebraska become bowl eligible after this game?
Man, this is so tough. I do think they beat Wisconsin here. I do. I just think that, the crowd, this crowd has just been through the ringer. I also think Wisconsin off that close game against Oregon. That's just going to be tough to bounce back from.
Deflating.
Because you pour a lot into that, and then you go on the road to Nebraska. Just feels like kind of a letdown game. I do think Nebraska gets the win here. I think they cover the 2.5, and I think they get to
it's
bowl
the fact that they're
eligibility.
coming off of that type of loss.
Joe?
That's so hard to come back from and then go and play Nebraska. The line already is starting to move from when we originally were talking about it earlier. I think originally when you sent it over, it was 2. Now it's 2.5. I think by the time game starts, it'll probably finish at like 3.5. I think they're going to cover. Nebraska's defense, I think, is going to be good enough to control that Badger offense.
Yeah, I think the public, Joe, I think you and I both.
I do, and
oftentimes
oftentimes on Saturdays I'll tweet out like the top 5 most public plays just so people know. And typically those plays, those 5 picks will usually go 1-4 or 0-5 that day. It's just Vegas knows it.
Yeah, right. So I like to do that. I think everyone's going to jump on Wisconsin because they played Oregon really, really tough, and Nebraska lost to USC, who is a middle of the road Big Ten team right now. So I think a lot of people are going to jump on Wisconsin. I like Nebraska minus 2.5. Here's the problem with that. Wisconsin fired their offensive coordinator, and I'm afraid it's going to be a we just fired the coach game.
Fired coach, dead mascot game.
That's what makes me scared. But yeah, fired coach, dead mascot game. So things to think about, gentlemen, things to think about. Next up, huge Big 12 implications here. Colorado at Kansas. Kansas is a +3 underdog at home, 59.5 spread. I don't want to be a hater. My God, I want to take Kansas +3.
Well, they just did it against Iowa State.
Can they get back up
3 in a row? Yeah, you're playing for bowl eligibility, brother. But my pick is the over here at 59.5. I think that's the.
Can they do 3 in a row?
I think that's the play here.
Yep, that's the play. Jay, you are correct.
Joe, what do you got?
Points.
I'm on the over as well. I mean, West Virginia
put
up 32 against Kansas. I don't know what Colorado's going to do. And Colorado obviously can be scored on as well. So I think the over is an easy play here. I also would love to take Kansas, and I would love to see them win. But a part of me now is I'm switching now back to Colorado's side where I'm like, I kind of want to see them get in the playoffs just for the entertainment factor as well. So I'm teetering.
Yeah. Yep. We're going to stay in the Big 12. BYU at Arizona State. Guys, Arizona State is a 3.5-point favorite at home.
Love the Sun Devils.
48.
Love the Sun Devils. Also love the under because these are
like
both teams that want to run the ball.
Sun Devils
and play possession football. It feels like it's going to be hard to rack up points here. The under at 48.5 may also be in play, but I'm taking the Sun Devils minus 3.5 with you guys.
Yeah, I think the under is only in danger here if this goes to OT, and I also could see that happening. But I'm with you. I think ASU is just going to be a little bit better.
Yep, totally agree. Army at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 14-point favorite in Yankee Stadium. Boo. 44.5 is the over-under. By the way, Army, gorgeous uniforms. All black, honoring the Screaming Eagles Airborne. Absolutely beautiful. Great uniforms there.
Army don't miss.
I don't know, man. I want to take Army so bad, but what Notre Dame did to Navy, it scares me. I know Army's better. I'm just gonna stay away. I'm gonna be a good, responsible person, and I'm gonna stay away. Unfortunately, gentlemen, Notre Dame wins this game. Just don't know how much they're gonna win it by. I think double digits.
I wouldn't touch the side here game because Notre Dame, if for them to be successful, they have to run the ball. Nobody in the country stops them better than Army right now, and obviously Army as well. Notre Dame's rush defense is good, but they haven't seen this type of running attack where it's just going to be pound and pound, pound. I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw that one art. What was it? You tweeted it out. This is art. What was that drive? It was like 13-minute drive. Yeah.
Against North Texas.
I think we're going to see a lot of that here. So
cinema.
Oh, yeah.
I had the
13 and a half minute drive.
I had the
94 yards, I think.
Yeah, 13
and then it went up 6 23
plays
right before the game when they announced that he was going to play. And I was like, oh, I'm glad I got this at like 5th. And I look at one point in the fourth quarter, it's like over under live is 21 and a half. I'm like, well, I don't think we're going to get to 60. But I think this is an under game. I agree. I think, unfortunately, Notre Dame is going to win. But I can see that. I think that number 14 is like spot on. So I'm staying away from the side.
This one opened with Notre Dame minus 17 and has come down. So here's the thing. I think Army covers, and I may sprinkle a little bit money line. Again, this is in a way. This is actually not in a way. This is actually a playoff elimination game. It is. So when you think about it that way, some postseason stakes on the line. This is going to be a fun one to watch. Can't wait for it. I did say Army, but really the under is the smart play. So listen to the two guys. Don't listen to me, even though I'm taking Army.
Yeah. Guys, the Pac-2 game has arrived. Wazoo goes to Oregon State plus 12.5. Oregon State is a 12.5 point dog. 56.5 is the over-under. I think Wazoo comes out and smokes Oregon State after that New Mexico loss.
Yeah, I like Wazoo to cover as well. Just really tough scene for Oregon State this year, obviously with Jonathan Smith leaving to go to Joe Pop's beloved Michigan State. It just feels like Oregon State's fallen off a cliff, which sucks to see. But man, John Mateer for Washington State is must-watch TV. Really fun player. I do think Wazoo covers the 12.5 points, and they win the Pac-12. Yes. I guess.
Yes.
Pac-2. Yeah.
Pac-2. Yes.
Yeah, I'm taking Wazoo.
This is the Pac-2 championship.
I haven't seen the line yet, but I know I'm going to take it. I'm going to take their team total over as well, and I'm probably going to take the game total over.
Joe, what do you think? I mean, you taking Wazoo?
Maybe.
Can I posit a question here? So, if Oregon State wins this game, but doesn't get above 500,
an under 500
because they lose in the final week of the season to Boise State.
They have to be.
Are they technically a conference champion?
Also, them playing a home and home next year.
I mean,
don't add a single team.
Just saying.
Wow. Just make
how does that impact bowl eligibility? They'll catch up to Lehigh and Lafayette in no time.
Yeah, man. What are their bowl times?
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a.
That's a question. That is a question we have not.
I mean, it probably won't matter because I think Washington State wins going away. But
Washington State team total is
their bowl ties
34.5.
Maybe Mountain West
hammering.
Maybe only at large. Maybe only at large games. I don't know. Good, very, very good question. Taking it, hammering that. Okay. Last game, Jay. Texas A&M at Auburn. Aggies going into Jordan-Hare. Going to be a hornet's nest. Auburn is a 2.5-point dog at home. 47.5 is the over/under. Jay, you're going to start us off here, man. What do you
historically in this series, the visiting team has had more success. It's been kind of weird. I think A&M matches up well with Auburn. I don't think that offensively Auburn's going to be able to get much traction. But at the same time, like Auburn, again, this is one of those situations. Auburn clawing for bowl eligibility. A&M very well could be looking ahead to the final game of the season against Texas, a rivalry game that hasn't been played in more than a decade, that everyone is talking about, that the students are already camping out for tickets. So this does feel like a letdown spot in a lot of ways. And I think the line reflects that. With that being said, I just don't trust Auburn to not turn the ball over. It's been the story all year. Like Auburn has some talent, but they just can't not turn the ball over. And I think they'll turn the ball over again against A&M. I do think A&M wins and covers. Obviously, there's a little bit of bias behind that pick, so take that as you will. I also think the under has a good chance of hitting here.
I've also been kind of eyeing up that under.
Yeah.
I think the under is the play at 47.5.
The last 3 times these teams played, it's gone under.
I hate that line for you, Jay.
I think
I despise
the last 6,
I hope
it's gone under.
I hope it's a Fugazi.
But for me, I need
Joe,
A&M to win this game.
What are you seeing?
Because I am an agent of chaos. I love as much chaos as possible. I need A&M to win this and go into that Texas game where everything in the SEC is on the line. But 2.5 at home, when they are clearly the inferior team, tells you that Vegas loves Auburn. And that's terrifying. So I'm not going to bet the side. I'll bet the under, and I'm going to be rooting for the Aggies hard.
Yep. Very good. Joe, but before we leave, man, do you want to plug all your socials?
Yeah, so we got
maybe give us
9 days left. Well, 8 by the time you listen to this, days left.
Maybe
55 days, 55
what do you
plays.
have
Giving out free
right
picks. I think the overall record right now is 31-14 as we're through 45 days of this. So make sure you follow on Twitter at Joey_props, I believe. Yes. And then follow the newsletter, giving out picks every day, like we said. CJ Stroud, I know I took him first quarter over certain rushing yards, plus 200. He already hit. Mixon tonight, first team touchdown, plus 190. That already hit. I'm killing college football. I'm not going to lie. Pro football has been beating me up a little bit. I've been killing college football, especially these midweek plays. So give it a follow. Listen, we're all out there. We're all betting. We're all having a good time. It's always good to get a little bit insight. You're not watching Buffalo. I'm watching Buffalo. Not talking to you guys. You guys are watching all of Buffalo. So yeah, give me a follow at Joey Props. And and in terms of future, like I said, I'm still riding high with Ohio State to win it that I bet earlier in the year. And the other future is Alabama. I just think with Milroe, if Milroe plays his game, Bama can beat anybody. The defense scares me a little bit, but in college, you can give up 40, 45 and still win a game. So I like Milroe. I like Bama at 850. I think it's great odds.
Yep. Jay, it's time to land the plane.
Yeah, let's land the plane. First of all, I just want to say RIP to the head coaches of all of the Owls in FBS football. They have all been fired. So that's Kennesaw State, FAU, Temple, and Rice have all moved on from their head coaches. And we're all wondering who is going to replace those guys. Had to get that one off. Yeah. You're welcome. It's been a great college football season. There's been chaos. There's been incredible players. There's been incredible moments. And It feels so good to have recorded 100 episodes of the Get Back Coach. We have had just a blast doing this, talking college football. We thank every one of you who listens to the show. Couldn't do this without you. Make sure you do all the things that help us grow as a podcast. Like, subscribe, share, give a 5-star review. If you want to sponsor us, reach out. We'd love that. It goes down in the DMs. Joe Pops, thank you for joining us again. We talked about it at the top of the show, big part of this process and how we got to where we are now. But we're closing in on the end of a college football season. So as we remind you every week,
Enjoy.
drink it in. Enjoy this while we have it. And make sure to enjoy another incredible college football weekend stacked with games.
Everybody,
thank you all for listening. Drink it in. Enjoy this while we have it. And make sure to enjoy another incredible college football weekend stacked with games. Thank you all for listening.
Everybody, have a wonderful week.